Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the invisible mechanics of emotional intelligence and social mastery. Imagine this, right? You've just crushed a presentation. The data is flawless, the strategy is brilliant, but the room, crickets. Completely flat, no buy-in at all. But then, later on, a coworker pitches a totally half-baked idea, and somehow, everybody is nodding enthusiastically. So frustrating, right? If you've ever felt that sting of watching your hard-earned technical brilliance fail to translate into the actual influence, success, or deep connections you deserve, well, you are in exactly the right place today.
Let's dive right in with a pretty massive question. Why is it that some people can just walk into a room and naturally dissolve tension, while others, even when they're desperately trying to help, just seem to create more conflict? Growing up, we're kind of conditioned to think technical brilliance is the ultimate prize. Get the degree, get the certification, know the hard data. But here's the tough reality. Your expertise is absolutely necessary, but on its own, it's entirely insufficient. If you can't read the emotional landscape, both your own and the people around you, you are basically navigating your career and your relationships totally blind.
All right, so here is our roadmap for today's session. We're going to start by diagnosing the true cost of this emotional blindness. Then we'll break down the 5 pillars of mastery, learn how to stay centered under pressure, figure out how to navigate those really tricky conversations, and finally, wrap up with a solid 90-day transformation plan.
Let's jump straight into Section 1, the cost of emotional blindness. We really need to validate a shared reality here and look at the invisible tax we are all paying every single day when we stay emotionally unaware.
Okay, let's talk real numbers here, because the financial impact of this is staggering. Research actually shows that people with average IQ scores but strong emotional awareness earn $29,000 more annually than those with high IQs and poor emotional skills. I mean, let that sink in for a second. $29,000. Your inability to read the room or manage your own stress is literally costing you tens of thousands of dollars every single year. You're leaving money on the table just by ignoring the human element. But honestly, the financial hit is just the tip of the iceberg.
Let's look at the broader ripple effects here. Every single time you misread someone's emotional state, you're operating with flawed, incomplete data. Imagine you're in a team meeting, right? A colleague suddenly gets quiet and crosses their arms. If you miss that subtle cue of frustration and just keep pushing your agenda, man, what could have been a super quick clarifying question turns into this deeply entrenched standoff. You end up escalating arguments simply because you're consumed by the need to be right, completely missing all the nonverbal stuff the other person is screaming at you. This is how people end up collecting hundreds of contacts over a career, but staying fundamentally isolated. But hey, here is the absolute best news you'll hear today. This is not some fixed genetic trait. Emotional intelligence is a highly developable skill set, and we're going to learn exactly how to build it.
Which brings us right into Section 2, the 5 pillars of mastery. Let's shift away from the problem and start looking at the actual underlying mechanics.
So emotional intelligence isn't some mystical, elusive aura that you're either born with or you're not. It actively breaks down into 5 very specific, highly trainable capabilities: self-awareness, self-regulation, internal motivation, empathy, and social skills. And here's the kicker. These work synergistically. You literally cannot jump straight to mastering social skills and charming a whole boardroom if you haven't first mastered your own internal state. It has to start from the inside out.
Let's zoom in on that second pillar for a minute, self-regulation. This is literally the difference between being a puppet to your triggers versus feeling those triggers fully, but actually expanding the space between stimulus and response. Think about when someone criticizes your work. The automatic knee-jerk reaction, defensiveness, anger. But self-regulation is about stretching out that tiny split second between hearing the critique and snapping back. Emotionally intelligent people don't magically suppress their difficult feelings. They feel them, they really do. But they use that expanded space to act strategically. They consciously choose a response that actually serves their ultimate goal, instead of just surrendering to a momentary impulse. And then there's empathy. The crucial thing here is that a lot of people think they're highly empathetic, but actually, they're just projecting. They assume other people feel exactly the way they would in that situation. Picture this. A friend comes to you venting about a horrible day at work. Your immediate reaction might be to whip up a 5-point action plan to fix it, because hey, that's what you would want, right? But they don't want a manager right now. They just want to be heard. True empathy is like being an emotional translator. You have to set aside your own agenda, your own preferences, and focus 100% on what that other person actually needs in that exact moment, whether that's space, just silent comfort, or a gentle challenge.
All right, let's move into Section 3, staying centered under pressure. This is all about building our capacity to keep absolute clarity and composure when the stakes get really high.
So when you're in a high-pressure moment, maybe a negotiation is tanking or an argument is brewing, your body is going to give you early warning signals. A clenched jaw, a racing heart, shallow breathing. When you notice that happening, you need a physical intervention, specifically this trauma-informed nervous system reset. Let's actually do this right now, together. Inhale deeply for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold that breath for 4, 2, 3, 4. And exhale slowly for 6 counts. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that longer intentional exhale, that is the mechanical secret sauce right there. It directly activates your parasympathetic nervous system, quite literally telling your brain, hey, we're safe, and successfully counteracting that fight or flight response in real time.
Now, this leads to a massive fundamental difference between reacting and responding. Reacting completely collapses that space between a trigger and an action. You feel attacked, boom, you attack back. Responding, on the other hand, relies on cognitive reframing. We're shifting the goal entirely from trying to suppress our difficult feelings to observing them purely as valuable data. Anger? That might just be a data point signaling that a boundary got crossed. Anxiety? That's just data telling you that maybe you need to prepare a bit more for tomorrow's meeting. In this framework, your emotions become these really helpful messengers providing vital intelligence. They are no longer commanders dictating your behavior.
Building on that rock-solid emotional regulation, let's explore Section 4, Navigating Difficult Conversations. We're going to look at exactly how to handle conflict and set boundaries without falling into manipulation or defensiveness.
The idea that difficult conversations are collaborative problems to be solved rather than debates to be won, that is a massive paradigm shift. The absolute biggest mistake we make in conflicts is becoming obsessed with being right. We treat an argument with a partner or a coworker like we're trial attorneys. We gather our little dossier of evidence, we cross-examine them, and we try to prove our point at all cost. And honestly, isn't it just completely exhausting to argue with someone who does that? True social leadership shifts the focus entirely away from ego and toward being effective. You're not in a courtroom trying to win a verdict. You are in a collaborative problem-solving session, and that absolutely requires mutual respect to function.
So, to actually execute this shift in real life, you want to use the 5-step PEACE protocol. Step 1, prepare. But don't just prepare your arguments. Prepare by genuinely trying to understand their perspective before you even walk in the room. 2, engage with empathy. Start with a gentle opening that lowers their defenses. Don't just come in hot. 3, acknowledge emotions. This is huge. If you don't address the underlying emotional currents directly, like that unspoken frustration or fear, you're never going to be able to successfully tackle the actual logistical issues. From there, step 4, you collaborate on creative solutions together. And finally, step 5, establish clear next steps to make sure real actionable change actually happens.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, your 90-day transformation. Let's map out the exact prescription to take all these theories and systematically hardwire them into everyday habits.
Because, look, knowledge without application is basically worthless, right? This 90-day timeline gives you a really safe, structured journey to accelerate your growth without getting completely overwhelmed. Days 1 to 30 are totally focused on your internal state. You're identifying your bodily triggers, practicing that vital pause between stimulus and response. Then, days 31 to 60, you shift your focus outward. You're training yourself to read micro-expressions and consciously practicing that real empathy we talked about. And then, days 61 to 90 push you into the advanced stuff, emotional leadership. This is where you practice navigating difficult conversations gracefully. It means actively stepping into the tension during a heated team meeting, recognizing the unspoken anxieties in the room, and guiding the whole group toward a collaborative solution, all without losing your own center.
Now, to actually support this whole 90-day transformation, you need a few quiet, non-negotiable anchor points in your daily routine. First up, a quick 10-minute morning practice to set your emotional intention for the day. Second, a 10-minute evening review to analyze what worked and what completely didn't. And this evening reflection, this is exactly why the process works. By systematically reviewing your emotional wins and losses every single night, you're signaling to your brain that this matters, which hardwires those new neural pathways and turns these techniques into automatic habits. Finally, do a weekly review of your most important relationships. Tracking your progress like this ensures this doesn't just stay some fascinating concept you heard once, but becomes a permanent, sustainable upgrade to your entire operating system.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I'd invite you to take one more slow, deep breath. Just sit with the material we've covered and simply observe the space within yourself for a second. What emotional weather are you experiencing right now? Is it calm, Is it a little anxious? Just notice it, no judgment. Developing emotional intelligence is a lifelong journey, but the person you become through this process is the person who will create the life, the wealth, and the deeply connected relationships you actually want. Remember, your technical skills might be what gets you in the room, but your emotional intelligence is exactly what keeps you there. Thanks so much for learning with me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.